You signed it. You admitted you owe me $250,000 for raising you. Now get out. My father snatched the handwritten note from my freezing hands and sneered. Go sleep in the shed. I don't want a debtor under my roof. He slammed the front door right in my face. I stood there in the middle of a blizzard, clutching my 5-year-old daughter, Sophie, to my chest. I didn't bang on the door. I didn't scream. I just stared at the lock, realizing the cold truth. He never intended to let us inside. He just wanted that signature. Have you ever been betrayed by the one person who was supposed to protect you? Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from right now. I want to know who is standing with me. 2 hours earlier, the only thing cold in that house was the look in my father's eyes. We were in the living room of the Greenwich estate, a place that smelled of expensive cedar and old money, even though I knew for a fact the credit cards used to buy the air fresheners were maxed out. My name is Diana. I'm 29 years old. By day, I work as an asset tracing paralegal for one of the most vicious law firms in Boston. I spend my life hunting down money that people try to hide. But in this house, I wasn't a professional. I was just the help. I was on my knees, trying to scrub a red wine stain out of the carpet that my mother had ignored for 3 days, while my 5-year-old daughter, Sophie, played quietly near the fireplace. She was spinning, her little dress flaring out, happy to be warm. Then she stumbled. Her elbow clipped a pedestal. The blue and white vase teetered, and for a second, time seemed to suspend. Then it crashed. The sound was like a gunshot in a library. Lawrence was on his feet before the shards settled. You clumsy little brat, he screamed. His face turned that specific shade of purple that used to terrify me. Now, looking back, I just see a man terrified of his own bankruptcy. That was a Ming Dynasty original. Do you have any idea what you've done? That is $50,000 of history you just shattered. Sophie started to cry, shrinking back. I stood up, instinctively stepping between him and my daughter. Dad, it was an accident. She's 5. I'll pay for it. You'll pay for it? My sister, Courtney, laughed from the sofa. She didn't even look up from her phone. With what money, Di? You drive a Honda. Courtney was 26, the golden child who could do no wrong. Just last month, she had wrapped her brand new Porsche around a telephone pole because she was texting. Lawrence hadn't screamed then. He had hugged her, asked if she was hurt, and bought her a new one the next week, using a line of credit I told him not to open. But for my daughter, over a vase, there was no hug. There was only venom. You're right, Lawrence spat, turning his rage on me. You will pay for it. And you'll pay for everything else, too. He walked over to his desk and pulled out a calculator, punching in numbers with aggressive, angry stabs. The vase. 50,000. The food you ate for 18 years. The clothes. The space you took up. I've been running the numbers, Diana. You are the reason I'm drowning. I stood there, stunned. I'm the reason? I'm the one who files his taxes for free every April so he doesn't go to jail. I'm the one who buys the groceries when his cards are declined at Whole Foods. I'm the one who fixed his legal issues when he fired his contractor without paying. I had spent my entire adult life trying to buy my way into this family's heart with labor and loyalty. $250,000, he announced, slamming the calculator down. That's the debt. That's what you cost me. You want to stay in this house tonight while that storm rages outside? You sign a note acknowledging that debt. Raising fees plus the vase. 250 grand. I looked at my mother, Judith. She was sipping her tea, looking out the window as if this negotiation was perfectly normal. She didn't say a word. She never did. You can't be serious, I whispered. You're charging me for my own childhood? I'm charging you for being a burden, he sneered. Sign it, or get out. I looked at the window. The snow was already piling up against the glass. I looked at Sophie, who was terrified. I didn't know then that the number 250,000 wasn't random. It wasn't a calculation of groceries and clothes. It was a specific number from a specific crime he thought he had buried. But in that moment, I wasn't an auditor. I was just a mother with no leverage. So I took the pen. I thought I was buying shelter. I didn't know I was signing the warrant for his destruction. The walk to my car felt like crossing a tundra. The wind whipped ice crystals against my cheeks, stinging like tiny needles. But I didn't feel it. I was numb. I buckled Sophie into her car seat, my fingers fumbling with the latch because they were so stiff. She wasn't crying anymore. She was just staring at me with wide, terrified eyes, shivering in a coat that wasn't thick enough for this weather. I climbed into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine sputtered, then caught. The heater blasted cold air for a solid 5 minutes before turning lukewarm. As I navigated the driveway, the tires slipping on the fresh powder, I looked back at the house one last time. The lights were still on. I could see the silhouette of my father in the window, watching us leave. He didn't wave. He didn't look worried. He looked satisfied. We drove in silence for miles. The only sound was the rhythmic thwack hiss of the windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against the snow. Mommy? Sophie's voice was small from the back seat. Did I be bad? The question hit me harder than the cold. No, baby, I said, my voice cracking. No. You were perfect. It was just an accident. Then why doesn't Grandpa love us? I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that her grandfather loves money more than blood? How do you explain that to yourself? I didn't have an answer. He's just confused. Sophie. He's confused about what matters. We pulled into the parking lot of the only place I could afford that night, a roadside motel with a flickering neon sign that buzzed like an angry hornet. The room smelled of stale smoke and lemon cleaner. I tucked Sophie into the lumpy bed, wrapping her in every blanket we had. She fell asleep almost instantly, exhausted by the trauma. I sat in the single plastic chair by the window, watching the snow bury my car. I should have been crying. I should have been panicking about where we would go tomorrow. But I wasn't. My hand drifted to my purse. I pulled out my work ID. Diana Sterling. Senior Asset Tracing Paralegal. For years, I had kept my work life and my home life completely separate. At work, I was a shark. I hunted down hidden offshore accounts for divorce lawyers. I found embezzled funds for corporate clients. I traced money through shell companies and complex trusts until I found the truth. But at home, I was just Diana. The disappointment. The doormat. I looked at the ID. Then I looked at my sleeping daughter. My father had made a critical mistake tonight. He thought he was kicking out his helpless daughter. He forgot he was kicking out a professional auditor. And then, it clicked. The number. $250,000. Why that specific amount? Why not 200? Why not 3? My father wasn't a man of random numbers. He was a man of ledgers and grudges. $250,000. That number itch scratched at the back of my brain. It felt familiar. It felt like a ghost from a file I hadn't looked at in a decade. I pulled out my laptop. I didn't open it. I just sat there, tapping my finger on the lid. The sadness in my chest began to evaporate, replaced by something colder, sharper. He wanted me to pay a debt? Fine. But first, I was going to audit the books. I looked at Sophie one last time. He broke us tonight, baby, I whispered to the dark room. But he forgot one thing. I know where the bodies are buried, because I'm the one who dug the holes. The tears were gone. The victim was gone. The auditor was clocked in. 3 weeks later, the frostbite on my fingers had healed, but the ice in my veins had only gotten colder. I wasn't shivering in a roadside motel anymore. I was sitting in my corner office on the 42nd floor of a glass tower in downtown Boston, staring at a PDF that was about to destroy my father's life. My colleagues think I'm quiet. They think I'm just diligent. They don't know that my diligence is actually a predator's patience. I had spent the last 21 days doing exactly what I do for my billionaire clients. Following the money. I started with the family trust. My grandmother, a woman who hated Lawrence almost as much as I did right now, had left a UTMA account, a Uniform Transfers to Minors Act trust in my name. It was supposed to unlock when I turned 21. But when I turned 21, Lawrence told me there was nothing there. Grandma spent it all on medical bills before she died, he'd said, looking me right in the eye. I believed him then. I didn't believe him now. I pulled up the archived bank logs on my dual monitors. The truth wasn't hidden. It was just ignored. The account had existed. It held exactly $250,000, and it was drained 8 years ago. 3 days after my 17th birthday. I zoomed in on the withdrawal slip. There was a signature at the bottom. Diana Sterling. It was a good forgery. Not perfect, but good enough to fool a bank teller who played golf with my father. But here is the problem for Lawrence. I was 17 when that money moved. I wasn't a legal adult. He was the custodian. By forging my signature to liquidate the account early, he hadn't just stolen from his daughter. He had committed federal wire fraud and embezzlement. But where did the money go? I opened a second window. Property records are public if you know where to look. I traced the transaction history of the Greenwich estate. 8 years ago, the house was in pre-foreclosure. Lawrence hadn't paid the mortgage in 6 months. And then, miraculously, on the exact same day my trust fund vanished, a lump sum payment of $250,000 hit the mortgage principal, bringing the account current and buying him full ownership. He didn't pay off the house with his hard work. He bought it with my future. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from Lawrence. He had sent me a photo of the debt note I signed in the blizzard. No caption. Just the image. A reminder of my submission. I looked at the photo, and a dark, Humorless laugh bubbled up in my throat. This is the blindness of superiority. He sent that photo to taunt me, thinking it was a leash. He thought he was reminding a stupid secretary of her place. He didn't realize that in my world, the world of forensic litigation, he had just handed me the murder weapon. By sending me that photo, he provided a time-stamped acknowledgement of the debt. He was claiming I owed him $250,000. I had proof he stole $250,000. And since he used that specific stolen money to secure the deed to the house, the law of constructive trust was clear. He wasn't the owner of that estate. He was just holding it for me. He thought he was tightening the noose around my neck. He was actually signing the deed over to me. My email pinged. It was the appraisal report for the vase shards I'd kept in my coat pocket. Subject: pottery fragment. Analysis. Verdict: late 20th century. Mass-produced reproduction. Origin: home decor catalog. Estimated retail value: $149.99. The Ming Dynasty masterpiece. The $50,000 tragedy that justified kicking a 5-year-old out into a snowstorm. It was worth less than a trip to the grocery store. He knew it. He had lied to manufacture a crisis, to force my hand, to get that signature. I was just closing the file when my office door opened. The senior partner, Mr. Henderson, walked in. He looked stressed. "Diana, I need a rush job. Top priority." He dropped a thick file on my desk. "We have a new retainer from the Sterling family. The son is getting engaged to some girl from Greenwich, and the father, Mr. Sterling, smells a rat. He wants a full forensic background check on the girl's family. Assets, debts, legal exposure. Everything." I looked down at the file. The name on the tab was Lawrence and Judith. My heart stopped, then restarted at double speed. The universe didn't just provide an opportunity. It provided a weapon. Mr. Sterling, the billionaire my sister Courtney was trying to trap, had hired my firm to investigate my parents. And he didn't know I was their daughter because Lawrence had spent 20 years erasing me from the family narrative. "I can handle it," I said, my voice steady. "Good," Henderson said. "Sterling wants the report by the engagement gala. Dig deep. If there's dirt, find it." I opened the file. I didn't need to dig. I already had the shovel. "Don't worry," I whispered to the empty room. "I'll find it all." I stared at the file on my desk. Sterling family, Lawrence and Judith. Preliminary asset review. The universe doesn't just have a sense of humor. It has a sense of justice. Mr. Sterling, a man worth billions, had built his empire on caution. He didn't trust the flashy couple from Greenwich, who were marrying into his dynasty. He wanted a rush background check. He didn't know he had just handed the assignment to the only person on Earth who already had the passwords. I didn't recuse myself. In my line of work, you recuse yourself when you can't be objective. But I was perfectly objective. The numbers were the numbers. I spent the next 48 hours compiling the receipts into a single, devastating document. I attached the forged withdrawal slip. I attached the mortgage payoff receipt. I attached the text messages where Lawrence admitted the vase was insured. I wrapped it all in a sleek, leather-bound cover stamped with our firm's gold seal. Then, my personal phone rang. It was Lawrence. "Diana," he said, his voice dripping with that fake, performative warmth he used when he wanted something. "I'm calling about the engagement gala this weekend. At the Ritz-Carlton. I know where it is," I said. "Right. Well, look. Your mother and I have been talking. We think it's best if you don't attend." He paused, waiting for me to beg. When I stayed silent, he continued, emboldened. "You know how these high society things are. We don't want you feeling out of place. With your job and your car. It's just not your crowd. Plus, Courtney is still upset about the vase." The audacity was breathtaking. He had stolen $250,000 from me, kicked my daughter into a blizzard, and now he was worried I would embarrass him because I drove a Honda. "I understand," I said, my voice smooth as glass. "Good. But, Diana, we do expect a gift. Something substantial. To show you're sorry. It would go a long way toward healing this family." "Don't worry, Dad," I said. "I'm sending a gift. It's expensive. Custom made. I think it's exactly what this family deserves." "Excellent. Send it to the venue." He hung up, satisfied. He thought he had won. He thought he had silenced the scapegoat. He had no idea he had just invited the executioner. Saturday night arrived. The Ritz-Carlton in Boston was glowing like a beacon of wealth. Limousines lined the curb 3 deep. Women in $5,000 gowns navigated the revolving doors. I watched from the backseat of my Uber. I wasn't wearing a party dress. I was wearing my sharpest black suit, the one I wore when I deposed CEOs. I walked up to the entrance. The security guard held a clipboard with the guest list. Name? He asked. I'm not on the guest list, I said, pulling out my firm credentials and the leather-bound report. I'm Diana Sterling, legal counsel for Mr. Sterling. I'm here to deliver a confidential briefing to the host. The guard glanced at the ID, then at the expensive binding of the report. He nodded and unhooked the velvet rope. Go right ahead, Miss Sterling. I stepped into the lobby. The air smelled of lilies and money. I could hear the murmur of the crowd in the ballroom, the clink of crystal, the laughter of people who thought they were safe. My father was in there, probably holding a champagne flute, thinking he had successfully erased me. I tightened my grip on the leather folder. I wasn't just a guest, I was the reality check, and I'd arrived right on time. The ballroom shimmered with black ties, silk gowns, and polite laughter beneath warm chandeliers. On stage, my father, Lawrence, played the perfect patriarch in a tailored tux, smiling for the crowd. My mother, Judith, sparkled beside him, while Courtney and her fiancé stood behind them like a flawless wedding photo. I stayed near the Sterling table, half hidden in my black suit, clutching the leather-bound report. Mr. Sterling met my eyes and gave a small nod. He didn't know my personal connection to the people on stage, only that I was the forensic auditor who had uncovered the truth. Lawrence raised the microphone. Friends, family, thank you for celebrating this union. Raising two daughters hasn't always been easy. The room chuckled politely. We sacrificed. We went without. And tonight, Judith and I have a gift for this young couple. A waiter stepped forward with an oversized novelty check. The crowd gasped. Arsha Wuwenmeyen, this is our life savings, Lawrence announced, voice trembling with rehearsed emotion. Every penny for Courtney's happiness. Applause erupted. Judith dabbed at her eyes. Courtney looked moved, maybe relieved. It was a performance. He was buying credibility with money he didn't have, taking credit for sacrifices he never made. I stepped into the light and walked toward the stage, calm and unstoppable. When the applause faded, I took a spare microphone near the band. That's a generous gift, Dad, I said. The silence hit instantly. Lawrence froze. Diana? What are you doing here? I'm here to deliver my gift, I said, climbing the stairs. And correct the record. You can't gift money you stole. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Security! Lawrence snapped, his face reddening. Get her out. She's unstable. Two guards moved forward until Mr. Sterling stood, lifting one hand. Stop. Let her speak. Panic flashed in Lawrence's eyes. Sir, please, this is a family issue. I'm not speaking as family tonight. I cut in, connecting my tablet to the AV console. I'm speaking as the forensic auditor hired by the Sterling family to verify your assets. The giant screens flickered. The wedding slideshow vanished, replaced by a bank document. Slide 1, I said evenly. This is the UTMA trust fund my grandmother left me. Balance: $250,000. Withdrawn in full 8 years ago. Using a slip with my signature. The screen zoomed in. I was 17, I continued. A minor. I couldn't legally authorize this withdrawal. And handwriting analysis confirms that isn't my signature. It's yours, Dad. Gasps. Judith went pale. Courtney stared like she couldn't breathe. Slide 2. A new document appeared. Mortgage payoff receipt for the Greenwich estate. Same date as the withdrawal. Amount: $250,000. I turned to Lawrence. Sweat glistened on his forehead under the lights. You didn't save for this, I said. You stole my inheritance to clear your mortgage, and now you're pretending to gift that same stolen value to buy prestige. You're regifting a crime. She's lying, Lawrence shouted, voice cracking. She owes me. She signed a note. I smiled because that was exactly what I needed. Perfect, I said softly. Slide 3. The screen changed to a photo of the handwritten debt note he'd forced me to sign, beside text messages proving his manipulation and fraud. You forced me to sign that to survive, I said. But under constructive trust, when stolen funds are used to buy an asset, that asset is held for the victim. I stepped closer. You didn't pay off your house, Lawrence. You bought my house with my money. And as the legal owner, I'm issuing an eviction notice. You have 30 days to vacate my property. Judith broke into loud sobs. How can you do this? We gave you life. I looked at her, unmoved. You gave me life. You also gave my 5-year-old daughter frostbite when you threw her into a blizzard. You don't get to use biology as a shield for cruelty. I'm not destroying this family. I'm balancing the ledger. Mr. Sterling stepped forward, disgust written across his face. The wedding is off, he announced. We don't merge with fraudsters. From the back of the room, a man in a plain gray suit approached my process server. He climbed the stairs and handed Lawrence a thick envelope. Lawrence and Judith Sterling, he said loudly. You have been served. It wasn't an arrest. It was worse public ruin. Delivered in front of everyone they'd ever tried to impress. Lawrence stared at the papers. Then at me. Suddenly small and hollow, the room dissolved into whispers and judgment. I unplugged my tablet and stepped back. I didn't need to say more. The receipts had spoken. Chaos followed. Courtney screamed, her perfect makeup collapsing with her life. Lawrence slumped into a chair, the document slipping from his hands. Judith cried alone. I didn't stay to watch the wreckage. The account was settled. I walked through the crowd as they parted instinctively. Near the exit, Mr. Sterling gave me a brief, professional nod. I returned it. In the lobby, Sophie slept on a velvet sofa, curled against the nanny's lap. Peaceful. Safe. Untouched by the poison upstairs. I lifted her gently into my arms. She stirred, then buried her face into my neck. Outside, the Boston night was cool and clear, clean air. Ocean salt, city exhaust. No blizzard. No suffocating perfume. Just space to breathe. In the taxi, holding my daughter, I stared out at the passing lights. I used to think family was who you suffered for. That love meant enduring disrespect to keep your seat at the table. That if I gave enough, forgave enough, they'd finally value me. Now I know better. Family is who would never ask you to bleed just to belong. Lawrence and Judith lost the Greenwich estate 30 days later. The eviction was swift. Fraud charges followed, draining whatever they had left. Courtney's engagement ended, leaving her with nothing but scandal and debt. As for me, I won the civil suit. I sold the house as soon as the title cleared. I didn't want the memories. I took what was mine, with interest, and built a college fund for Sophie. These days, we spend afternoons in the park warm, sunny, free. Sophie runs laughing across the grass, safe in the one certainty that matters. Her mother will never let anyone make her feel like a burden. Sometimes the only way to heal a wound is to stop touching it. If you've ever had to walk away to save yourself, subscribe. We're building a new family here.